We anticipate at least 20,000 people dead, if not more.
They promised the United States that executions would stop. They lied. We have just received confirmation that the Iranian regime has begun secretly executing protesters.
7:45 a.m., the USS Abraham Lincoln carrier strike group entered the Strait of Hormuz. 5 warships, 4,700 personnel, $13 billion in assets, moving through 21 miles of water Iran had spent 2 decades fortifying.
Is again in the crosshairs of the U.S. military might. After days of speculation, Trump has confirmed that U.S. naval and air assets are indeed positioning themselves near Iran, while an IRGC commander, they have their fingers on the trigger, and that any U.S. attack will be treated as an all-out war. What started as domestic protests in Iran has now become a point of contention between Tehran and Washington. 3 weeks after Trump promised Iranian protesters that U.S. forces were locked and loaded and that help was on its way, drums of war are beginning to sound across the Persian Gulf. Aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln and its strike group, which was heading towards Iran, has gone dark after switching off its transponder. A second carrier strike group has reportedly entered the Mediterranean. They are armed with Tomahawk missiles and other high-tech weapons.
American carrier groups don't defend with one ship. 5 ships function as a single integrated weapons system. 3 destroyers and 2 cruisers created overlapping defensive zones in concentric rings. Each ring, different weapons, different ranges, different redundancy layers. Doctrine refined through 183 exercises. At 95 kilometers, SM-6 missiles launched. American interceptors at Mach 3.5 raced toward threats at Mach 0.9. Closing speed, Mach 4.
The U.S. military buildup is not just limited to the seas. Dozens of military transporters, air-to-air refuelers, bombers and fighter jets are being moved to American bases in Qatar, Jordan and Bahrain to gain air superiority. On the other hand, Patriot and Terminal High Altitude Area Defense air defense systems, UK's Royal Air Force has put its Typhoon jet squadron on defensive duties in Qatar. Experts believe the deployment can help US prevent any counterattack from Iran, including ballistic missiles and Shahid drones. As a precaution, the United States has ordered a reduction of its military presence in bases vulnerable to Iranian missiles. Iran is preparing a response that is swift and unyielding. According to reports, Tehran is in discussion with China about purchasing the HQ-9B long-range air defense missile systems. A US-based think tank has concluded that Iran prioritized rebuilding its missile program, importing chemical precursors from China to produce solid fuel propellants, including tons of sodium perchlorate, shipped to the port of Bandar Abbas. The Iranian missile inventory was damaged during Israel's 12-day war, but was not completely eliminated and poses a potent threat for the US forces. The Iranian officials have said that of the 21 ballistic missile sites struck by Israel last June, 16 have been rebuilt with the help from North Korea. The country now flaunts a vast arsenal of both short and medium-range ballistic missiles, the weapons most capable of striking US bases in the region, as painted red by Iranian officials. Responding to US threats, Ali Akbari, the prayer leader in Tehran, said all US bases were clear and precise targets. Senior Iranian officials say missiles and launchers are already in a state of high alert for weeks. Learning from the previous experiences, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps has also stepped up the protection of its high-value targets. The IRGC personnel have been told to rotate through safe houses and swift vehicles frequently and avoid carrying cell phones. While US officials have assembled a range of military options, Gulf states are finding themselves uneasy, with some suggesting that it may have delayed Trump's initial decision to attack Iran during the peak of the protests.
First Iranian missile exploded at 92 kilometers, then second, third, fourth. Fire control tracked 600-plus objects simultaneously, rejecting every false target without human intervention.
But this betrayal comes at a very dangerous moment for the Ayatollah. The USS Abraham Lincoln Strike Group has just arrived in the Arabian Sea, running silent but locked and loaded. Here we have President Trump talking about the military buildup near Iran.
We have a big force going toward Iran. I'd rather not see anything happen, but we're watching them very closely. I stopped 837 hangings on Thursday. They would have been dead. Every one of them would have been hung. This is like from 1,000 years ago. This is an ancient culture. Very smart people, by the way, but it's an ancient culture. 837, mostly young men, were going to be hung on Thursday. And I said, if you hang those people, you're going to be hit harder than you've ever been hit. It'll make what we did to your Iran nuclear look like peanuts. And an hour before this horrible thing was going to take place, they canceled it. And they actually said they canceled it. They didn't postpone it. They canceled it. So that was a good sign. But we have an armada. We have a massive fleet heading in that direction. And maybe we won't have to use it. We'll see.
A strike group is now within striking distance of Iran, and inside the country, the regime is executing protesters, killing cops who showed mercy, and forcing families to pay for their children's bodies. The clock is ticking for the Ayatollah. BBC Persia is now reporting that executions have officially begun. According to sources close to the family, a man named Ali Rahbar was executed yesterday. He was 33 years old, an athlete, a bodybuilder, and he was arrested just 10 days ago. His family still doesn't know what he was charged with, but now he's already gone. No trial, no defense, just death. And he wasn't alone. 5 police officers in Karaj region were killed, not by protesters, but by the IRGC. Their crime? They refused to shoot civilians on January 8th and January 9th, the 2 deadliest days of the crackdown. The regime is now executing its own security forces for showing mercy. And here's how they're getting away with it. These executions are happening outside the official judicial system. That means the regime can tell foreign governments all executions are paused, while the killing continues in shadows. It's not a pause, it's a lie. The death machine never stopped. They just moved it off the books. But unfortunately for the Ayatollah, over the past 48 hours, more and more Iranians are figuring out how to get around the internet blackout that the regime has implemented. That means we are now seeing more footage of what actually happened. And I want to warn you guys before we even get into it. I'm not going to show you anything because it's truly horrific and I'm sure it's not allowed on YouTube. But just the fact that we're going to talk about it, I just want to give a fair warning that if you don't want to watch this video from now on, that's perfectly fine. The stuff we are seeing isn't like the footage from the first few days. We're now seeing beheaded bodies in the streets, playgrounds filled with corpses, families walking through rows and rows of dead bodies searching for their loved ones. The regime is not helping anyone. In fact, they're exploiting the Iranians who are grieving right now. You see, when families go to retrieve bodies that the IRGC collected from the streets, they are being charged thousands of dollars just to get the bodies back. And that's not all. The IRGC is also forcing these families to sign documents declaring that their loved ones were a member of the security forces. This way, the regime can rewrite the history. They are forcing grieving families to lie, to say that their children were IRGC members killed by terrorists, not civilians murdered by their own state. That way, the official death toll that the regime publishes shows just security forces, and the protesters disappear from the history books. But we're not gonna let that happen. So let's talk about what the actual figure is. Now we have more footage, and that means we have more information. But the regime itself says just over 3,000 people died. But they also claim that 2,500 of those were security forces, basically innocent victims of terrorist protesters. But that's a lie, and we all know it's a lie. So here's what the real number looks like. The United Nations is now warning that the true death toll could be as high as 20,000 people. Think about that. 20,000 mostly civilian, mostly young people, most of them unarmed, killed by their own government in a matter of days. Here we have Raja Pahlavi, the son of the former Shah, sharing more details about the scale of this massacre. Take a listen.
In the middle of what's happening, I think I can update you with the latest news that I had from Iran itself. I just got off the phone with a political prisoner that managed to somehow connect to the internet. And here's what the situation on the ground is. It's an ongoing war between the people and this regime. The regime has massacred them, and it is in total darkness that it is carrying out even more brutality by shooting people in hospitals under the direct order of Khamenei, not to let anyone who was even wounded alive. That's the extent of their brutality, and the numbers you quoted is correct. We anticipate at least 20,000 people dead, if not more, across the land. Now, one thing that the world and this audience needs to realize is that these brave Iranians are saying, we are fighting not just for our own liberation, but to free the world from this terrorist regime. Their commitment is to fight to the very end, and this is the momentum that we have right now. And what could change the odds in their favor is the much-needed neutralization of the regime's instruments of repression, which can only occur based on what the president stated a few days ago, that it will be consequential for the regime using the brutality against the people. And you should not believe a word the regime says, because as an act of desperation, they're trying to buy time. They will make the same false promises that they've done before, and you cannot rely on their words at all.
American News Network wants to thank you for being a part of our great show. Please subscribe, leave us a comment, and like the videos. Thank you once again from American News Network.